So welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Gary Chambers, y'all might remember when Gary first drew our attention. Do we have the school district video? So y'all might remember when Gary went before the school district in Baton Rouge, and let's just say he let them know exactly how he felt about them. When it came to the one of the schools there, in terms of renaming it, you had some folk there who were not too pleased with what he had to say. He has been very much involved in Baton Rouge for quite some time, an activist on a variety of issues. Then Gary also ran for Congress against others. The seat, of course, was won by Troy Carter. And so now Gary is running for United States Senate. And let's just say he got the attention quickly of folks on the right when he dropped this first, shall we say, provocative commercial.
Every 37 seconds, someone is arrested for possession of marijuana. Since 2010, state and local police have arrested an estimated 7.3 million Americans for violating marijuana laws, over half of all drug arrests. Black people are 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana laws than white people. States waste $3.7 billion enforcing marijuana laws every year. Most of the people police are arresting aren't dealers, but rather people with small amounts of pot, just like me. I'm Gary Chambers, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Well, that one, of course, got folk attention. Then Gary said, what the hell, let's just do the next one.
They said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. But here in Louisiana and all over the South, Jim Crow never really left, and the remnants of the Confederacy remain. In 1873, when a black man named P.B.S. Pinchback won a U.S. Senate race, he was never seated. They claimed election fraud. The attacks against black people, our right to vote, and participate in this democracy are methodical. Gerrymandered districts are a byproduct of the Confederacy. Our system isn't broken. It's designed to do exactly what it's doing, which is producing measurable inequity. 1 in 13 black Americans are deprived of the right to vote. 1 in 9 black Americans do not have health insurance. 1 in 3 black children live in poverty. It's time to burn what remains of the Confederacy down. I do believe the South will rise again, but this time, it'll be on our terms. I'm Gary Chambers, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
So check out Gary's next commercial, one he, of course, dropped against his opponent.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and this is my opponent, John Kennedy. He used to be a Democrat that talked like this.
Well, we have another program here at Treasury that we're very proud of.
But then he became a Republican, switched accents, and now he talks like this.
I will not let you down. I'd rather drink weed killer.
Oh, and by the way, now he's good buddies with this guy. John Kennedy inspires people like this and has now raised $15 million to keep ruining Louisiana. We need to build a grassroots movement to defeat John Kennedy and build the margins of the Democratic Party in the U.S. Senate. Chip in today. We're a long way from 15 million, but people power can catch up. Let's go to work.
Avocado toast eating insiders elite.
Fake ass John Kennedy. Now, I really can't wait. I doubt John Kennedy will actually choose to debate Gary. But, I really do hope that if they do debate, we get to see Gary raise his hand to John Kennedy like he did this.
I had intended to get up here and talk about how racist Robert E. Lee was, but I'm going to talk about you, Connie. Sitting over there shopping while we talking about Robert E. Lee. This is a picture of you shopping while we talking about racism and history in this country. Only white members of this board got up while we were up here talking too, because you don't give a damn, and it's clear. But I'm gonna tell you what the slaves, my ancestors, said about Robert E. Lee, since you don't know history, sister. Let me tell you that they said when he got the plantation, after he got off the field where 27,000 people died at Gettysburg, Connie.
I'm sorry, I had to stop it right there. Connie! Okay, let me go back.
Robert E. Lee was a brutal slave master. Not only did when he whooped the slaves, he said, lay it on them hard. After he said, lay it on them hard, he said, put brine on them so it'll burn them. That's what Robert E. Lee did. And you set your arrogant self in here and sit on there shopping while the pain and the hurt of the people of this community is on display because you don't give a damn and you should resign. You should have resigned 2 years ago when you choked a white man in his house. You should have resigned 2 weeks ago when you got on TV and said foolishness. And you should walk out of here and resign and never come back because you are the example of racism in this community. You are horrible. Now to the rest of the board. You have an obligation to the people of this community, and 81% of them are black. And do you need a Klan rally outside, Mr. Goday, before you end it? Because holding it up means that you put that building in jeopardy. You do, sir. Because all over the country, they burning stuff down. And black folks in this city have stood with protesters. I ain't seen you elected officials out there with them, making sure that nothing goes south in Baton Rouge. It's been folks in this community who give a damn, not just when it's comfortable, but every time. And 4 years ago, we came down here. Mr. Drake, they say you're a good man. Be a good man. Black folks say you're a good man. White folks say you're a good man. Your legacy is attached to tonight, brother. Your legacy. Now, let me say to the black members of the board, it's the most solidarity I've seen out of y'all in forever. Let's keep it that. Let's stand on this moving forward. Because we don't need to apologize for Connie, Evelyn. She showed you who she was when she was sitting next to you while you were talking shopping. You don't need another example. Now, when do we as Baton Rouge stop being in 1856? If you want to name the building after somebody, how about PBS Pinchback, the first black governor of the state of Louisiana, when he was governor during Reconstruction? You want another name? Oscar Dunn, who was the lieutenant governor of the state of Louisiana in the 1860s, that gave the right for Darius Landis and Don Collins and Evelyn Ware Jackson and Tremel Howard to get here. You want to name it after somebody from Reconstruction? Name it after the people who fought for abolition of slavery. If you want to name it after somebody, honor the right people, the people who are on the right side of history. But it's your ancestor that the school is named after. So you're holding on to your heritage. But we built this joint for free. And we've done begging you to do what's right.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Connie, joining us right now is Gary Chambers. Gary, what's up, man?
What's good, brother? Thank you for having me.
Man, you got these white conservatives all mad, upset. Fox News pulling videos of you talking about Farrakhan, and man, you got them mad.
Well, we're gonna stay on them all year long because we're gonna speak truth to power and justice every step of the way.
Well, what really tripped me out in that third spot, you know, like fake ass John Kennedy with that fake ass accent, trying to be all homespun and trying to be all down to earth. And what gets me is he comes to DC to act dumber and sound dumber in appealing to these dumb Republicans.
Well, I call him Foghorn Leghorn, Senator Foghorn Leghorn, you know, because he spends more time pretending than he does actually legislating. And excuse me, my eyes watered over and over, Roland. But John Kennedy is an embarrassment to this state. He voted against infrastructure dollars. That's billions of dollars that would have come to this state to help the people of this state. Why does that matter? Because at the time he voted against infrastructure, Hurricane Ida had just happened in Louisiana. We had power lines down all over the state. We had people in Houma, Louisiana, who were without power for a month while John Kennedy was on Fox News talking trash. And Roland, this is a man who was elected with 536,000 votes. There are 900,000 black voters in the state of Louisiana, 1.2 million eligible black voters in the state of Louisiana. This is simply a question of, can we raise resources to activate a populace of people to flip a seat in the U.S. Senate?
So when it comes to running, are there other Democrats who are running in the primary, or are Democrats giving up on even running against John Kennedy?
So, we have a jungle primary. There is another Democrat in the race, but that person has been in the race since October. They raised about $195,000 in 3 months. We exceeded $600,000 in fundraising in our first month. We're continuing that momentum into the second month, and we're going to close out the quarter strong. We know that we're the front runner in this race. And we're the only candidate that the country is talking about as it relates to the U.S. Senate in Louisiana. John Kennedy's beatable, but he's only going to be beat by somebody who can build a grassroots movement to touch voters that are not typically touched to get them to show up to the polls. John Bel Edwards is the governor of Louisiana. He's a Democrat, and 50% of Black New Orleans did not go to vote when he was on the ballot, yet he won. This is a way for us to be able to activate a piece of the pie in this state that has never been touched, never attempted to touch, but we can get those people out and we can beat Kennedy.
So how do you get them out? I mean, that's the real issue there. How do you get them out? How do you connect with them? How do you explain to them why voting matters? You got a lot of people out here who complain, who say, look, man, this stuff, it's not going to make any difference. So how do you connect with them?
Well, one, I think you talk about the things that are important to them, Roland. I've listened to you for years talk to the Democratic Party about whether or not they were effectively messaging to Black communities, right? We are not just somebody who talks about it. I've been about it. I've shown up in communities consistently over the years, helping to create change in communities, and people know that. And as a result, when we show up in the community, we have some credibility with them. That's number one. Number two, we know how to speak a message and a language that connects with those people through our digital advertising. And that message is penetrating young people and old people alike in different demographics. And the third thing, Roland, is I do a ground game like nobody else. In our congressional race last year, and you understand this because you understand advertising, we spent $33,000 on TV, $7,000 on radio, and not a dime of direct mail. And we got within 1,500 votes of making it into a runoff for a congressional race. And that's the power of our ground game that did that, our digital presence. And what we want to do is activate our non-conventional stuff by raising these resources the way we've been traveling around the country, having fundraisers to raise money so that we can do the TV, radio, mail, to layer that on top of the ground game so that we can defeat Kennedy. I'm not keeping it a secret because we want the whole country to know that this is doable. Louisiana is 34% Black, 5% brown, and there's 20 to 30% of white voters in this state who don't believe that we should rank 50th in the nation. We just need the rest of the country to see that the 4 million people in this state are as valuable as the races that we've seen won in Georgia. We can do what Georgia did too.
So when is the primary there in Louisiana?
So it's a jungle primary, so it's all in November. So we've got to be able to go through from now until November with our message, keep Kennedy under 51% and end up in a runoff with him in December. So ultimately, this will be one of the last seats in the U.S. Senate if we get there. If a Democrat, the other Democrat, chooses to run for another position or not run for this, that leaves us wide open head-to-head with Kennedy November the 8th, and we believe that we can beat him head-to-head given the opportunity and the resources.
So explain that when you say it's a jungle primary. So like, for instance, in Texas, the runoff primaries are going to happen in May, and then whoever wins in the primary then faces in the general election in November. That's not the case in Louisiana?
That's not how we do it here. You know, Louisiana got to do everything a little different. So everybody who's decided to run Democrat or Republican is placed on the ballot for November the 8th. The two people who, if no one gets to 51%, the two top vote getters go into a runoff in December, and then that is kind of functions like our general election.
Has that December date been set?
That December date is set. I believe it's December the 8th or the 11th. Don't quote me on that. I know November 8th is the day we got to get busy first.
Right. So the goal is to keep Senator Kennedy, the incumbent, under 50%. Is it 50 plus 1%? So if he gets 50.1, does he get 50.1%? Then no need for a runoff. So you got to keep him under 50%?
We keep him under 50%. We know we can keep him under 50%. And if we keep him under 50%, we go into a head-to-head runoff with him in December.
Got it. All right, questions from my panel. Let's see. Greg, you're first.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Brother Chambers. I'm a big fan, brother. Um, Given what you said, we've all known those numbers for some time. Mike Espy should be in the United States Senate from Mississippi if we could have activated it. And Roland has kind of set the stage by asking the broader question. I guess I want to ask you, um, I think about Cori Bush, I think about Ilhan Omar, and now looking at you in a statewide run for the federal legislature. How important is it for us to speak the kind of truth to power that you are speaking? And I guess a follow-up with that would be, do you imagine that this can resonate among particularly our younger voters to get them, younger potential voters, as I'm assuming that many of these people haven't been registered to vote yet? Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother. I think that, yes, we can resonate with young people. I can tell you since the cannabis video, everywhere I have gone, I have had more young people walk up to me than I've had in any of the previous times that I've gone viral, and I've gone viral a few times fighting for us. To the question of, is it necessary for us to speak this truth? Absolutely it is, because the conditions of our people has not changed in this country, and playing nice is not going to advance our communities. We need to be able to be truthful. We need to be able to be honest. We can be respectful if that's the temperature of the conversation, but if we got to get a little disrespectful, sometimes we need to do that as well, so that people understand that we're going to be serious about the fact that we're not going to continue to be silent about the injustices that happen in this country, and we're not going to be passive about it. That you're not going to continue to just meander around pretending that you're doing so good by Black folks when you're not. We want President Biden to be true to what he said in the campaign and decriminalize cannabis at the federal level, because he has the power to do so. And you need U.S. senators who are going to have use their bully pulpit to say that to the president, or their quiet conversations to say that to the president, and leverage their vote if necessary.
Reese.
Hi, Gary. I appreciate your outspokenness. I'm completely with you on being disrespectful if need be. But what I'm curious about is your economic priorities, or 3 of your top policy priorities that you plan to bring to the United States Senate.
Well, number one, it's a good question, and I appreciate it. Number one, when we look at the economy, we've got to raise the minimum wage. That's something that I'll be an additional vote in the U.S. Senate to see happen in this country. I think it's possible for us to do it. We've got to figure out how do we make that happen. And it doesn't just happen by electing a Gary Chambers. It happens by paying attention to Val Demings in Florida, paying attention to Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin, Charles Booker in Kentucky. All of these folks, if we get our margins larger, all of these policies that President Biden has proposed, like Build Back Better, are possible if more people are in the U.S. Senate. And so I think that caveat has to be there. The minimum wage has to be increased. We've got to figure out, there's a lot of good components to the Build Back Better plan that I think would have helped people. The child tax credit that people were given, the ability for people to pull their families out of child poverty. A big major thing for me is the Green New Deal, because I believe that the jobs that can be created for the state of Louisiana and the future of our economy are important. Our economy ranks number 50 in the nation. We also rank number 50 in environmental quality, and we rank number 50 in crime in Louisiana. And we're married to the oil and gas industry. The jobs of the future are in the energy sector and in technology. And we've got to figure out, how do we build a robust, comprehensive plan for this country that addresses energy and creates jobs in that sector. And I want Louisiana to be at the forefront of receiving those benefits when that happens.
Larry?
Yeah, Mr. Chambers, thanks. And so I want to start with a quote. It's the truth that shall set you free, right? And the reason why I started with that is that from you reading Connie to the ad set, Roland was kind enough to replay for us. You use history as a tool, right, to talk about this country's, disturbing history of racism in America, particularly in Louisiana. So can you talk about how you, in a time when people are pushing back on history, accurate history, and particularly racism in America, how you're using it as a tool to reach the voters, and even some voters who are not comfortable talking about Louisiana's history and this country's history of racism?
Well, I think it's important that we talk about the history, because so many people don't know the history, which is why they perpetuate a lot of the lies that they tell. Many of the reasons I talk about PBS Pinchback is because I've watched how in the digital space, especially, so many of us talk about the wealth of our ancestors. Those of us, we talk about how they burned down Greenwood, and all of those things were terrible. And our ancestors did go and create commerce, but they also elected their peers to represent them. And they don't want us to know about that because that's where power lies. You can have Jay-Z have $1 billion, but a governor controls $20-30 billion a year, right? And so that's power to be able to influence the social conditions of people. We need to be able to understand that this portrait you see behind me has Oscar Dunn in the middle of it, and PBS Pinchback is on it as well. Those men were elected in the 1800s. They created some of the first civil rights ordinances that existed in this country, some of the education policies. That's how Southern University got created, Grambling State University, as a result of what these men went into the state legislature to do. But what they don't tell you is that PBS Pinchback becoming the governor was a ricochet effect, kind of like what we see with Raphael Warnock becoming the U.S. Senator from Georgia, that it caused a reaction by the white majority to try to prevent it from happening again. And so from PBS Pinchback, it is 1990 before Douglas Wilder becomes the governor of Virginia. And what I'm trying to convey to us is that we are in as serious a moment as they were in Reconstruction, that there will be attempts to prevent us from achieving the excellence that we know is possible through the democratic process by restricting our votes, by gerrymandering, by creating all of these outlandish voter laws that they are creating. PBS Pinchback actually won a U.S. Senate race back in the 1870s. And a word that they use now, voter fraud, is what they use to prevent him from being seated. And what we need to know is that the devil don't use new tricks. The question is, do we know his game? And we teach history to learn the game so that we don't fall for the same mistakes again.
So what jumps out here is, I'm going to go back to this whole deal of turnout. One of the issues that we saw in Georgia was that black folks had been saying for a very long time, hey, Democrats, this is what y'all need to do to turn people out, but they didn't want to invest the money. Have you heard from the Democratic Senate Congressional Committee, the DSCC, being chairman of Senator Gary Peters out of Michigan, who faced a very tight race in 2020, running against John James, an African-American, black Republican. Peters squeaked by. Have you heard, are Democrats statewide, are you talking with them? Are they saying, hey, we want to invest to ensure people turn out? Because the number that you laid out, and I want you to lay those numbers out again, because people need to understand the numbers. When Senator Kennedy won, you say it was 500 and how many thousand?
536,000 votes is what he was elected by.
And that was in a
900.
That wasn't in a presidential year. That was in like a midterm, correct?
I believe he was elected in 2016, but the caveat is he won in a runoff.
So he got those 535,000 votes in a runoff.
In a runoff.
So the argument that you're go ahead.
And there are 900,000 registered black voters in the state, 1.2 million eligible black voters. But the Democratic Party in the state of Louisiana has been cash-strapped, and the National Party does not support Deep South parties. I heard somebody brought up Mike Espy earlier. Mike Espy should be the U.S. Senator from Mississippi, but the Democratic Party does not invest in Mississippi and Louisiana.
So you're saying that there are 300,000 eligible but unregistered African Americans in Louisiana?
Yes, sir.
So
we intend to get them registered.
So have you had conversations with Cliff Albright, LaTosha Brown at Black Voters Matter? Have you talked with NAACP and other groups saying, hey, y'all need to be seizing upon this in Louisiana? We can do in Louisiana what happened in Georgia.
We had preliminary conversations with Black Voters Matter. They are very supportive overall and were supportive last year in our congressional race, and anticipate that we're going to be able to get support from them as well. To your first point about the Democratic Senate Central Committee, they have reached out to our campaign. Those conversations are progressing. And that is a result of the work that we've done in the digital space to create a conversation about Louisiana that I don't think that has been anticipated. What needs to happen at this point, though, is people need to jump on early so that we can gain the momentum necessary to make this happen. If the Democratic Party can't talk to me about flipping Texas blue, if they can't flip 4 million people in Louisiana, that's Houston. Houston is 3.8 million people. Louisiana is 3.9 million people. If you can't do it in Harris County, if you can flip Texas, you can't flip Louisiana. That doesn't make sense to me.
See, this point is so critical because, again, numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. If you use the 500 and let's just say 600,000 as your marker, basically what you're arguing is if you pick up 400,000, you said 1.9 million African Americans in the state.
1.2. Let me give you even further.
So let's
go even further.
If you pick up 400,000 of the 400,000, the 1.2 African Americans, and hell, you pick up 200,000 white Democrats in Louisiana, yeah, that's 600,000.
And here's the thing. John Bel Edwards, a Democrat, is the governor of Louisiana right now, Roland. He was elected with a little over 700,000 votes. Over 450,000 of that 700,000 were black folk. Okay? So don't tell me we can't do it. We know we can do it. We have elected a Democrat twice since 2015 in Louisiana. He was elected in 2015, reelected in 2019. And if we are wise, we seize on this opportunity so that we can win not just the U.S. Senate race in 2022, but the governor's mansion again in 2023, hopefully with a black Democrat.
So from an internal standpoint, so are you saying, is your target saying, hey, if we hit 500,000 African Americans and we turn out 250,000 white Louisiana Democratic voters, you can absolutely win the U.S. Senate seat?
We can absolutely win the U.S. Senate seat, and it's doable. The Power Coalition with Ashley Shelton, they've been doing grassroots organizing, much like the New Georgia Project has been doing in Georgia. They've been touching voters, and over 60% of the voters that they touch in their registered 800,000 list show up to vote in every election that they contact them in. The question is the party going to get on board with a black Democrat that can win in this state?
So what is the voter registration deadline in Louisiana to be able to vote in November?
All the way in October, brother. We got another 7 months that we can register people in this state. We got time and opportunity. All we need is resources and manpower.
All right, then. I certainly look forward to coming down to Louisiana, doing our show down there, chatting with folks there. So it shall be interesting. And so keep us abreast of voter drives that you're going to be doing there in the state of Louisiana. So we can certainly get down there to cover it.
Thank you, Roland. Let me make one more point, Roland. Everything that we have done in this race has been done with a staff that is 90% black, brother.
All right, then. All right. Gary Chambers, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I want to go back to our panel on this. Reese, the reason I'm always pressing with those numbers, because it boils down to is it's all about the math. It comes down to the math. And I remember, and it was 2012. It was election night 2012. And I was waiting to go on CNN. May have been election night or may have been after the election, or slightly before. But it was definitely in 2012. And we were here in D.C. and we're waiting to go on. And Chris Van Hollen, then Congressman Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, was head of the DCCC. He now is a U.S. Senator from Maryland. And so I was talking to him, and I said to him that, look, man, I said, y'all can actually flip 2 states. You can flip Georgia, you can flip Texas. I said, you got 2.1 million eligible but unregistered Latinos in Texas. I said, at the time, I think there were like 800,000 eligible but unregistered Black and Latino voters in Georgia. And he shook his head. No, he said, red. I said, no, you got to do the work. I said, Doc, I said, y'all just keep giving up saying, no, there's no shot. I said, if you got the eligible but unregistered people sitting there, you got to go out and get them. Well, folks like Stacey Abrams and Raphael Warnock and others got sick and tired of waiting for these Democrats to do that. So yes, they created the New Georgia project. They actually went out and raised the money independently. And what happened? They changed the laws there, drastically reduced the number of unregistered people. And so that paved the way 8 years later for Warnock and John Ossoff to win in the runoff to become United States senators. And so the same thing. Why are Republicans gaining ground in South Texas? Because Democrats didn't put the resources in there and just automatically assume, oh, they're going to keep voting for us. And so now Republicans have made inroads in South Texas. Now Democrats, oh my God, we got to do something. Well, you should have actually been proactive. What Gary is laying out is what we call a real strategy. And this is why I've been saying, look, Black people, we can't wait for parties to do what they do. So sending money to Black Voters Matter allows for Cliff and Latasha and their organizers to go in and register those people Gary's talking about to be able to change elections. If you don't actually get the folk registered, ain't no way in hell they gonna vote because they ain't registered.
Yeah, but even with the numbers that Gary laid out, even with just turning out the registered voters, that would be a game changer in this election. And so I think the problem that we see from the Democratic Party is they focus so much on, activating voters in the 11th hour, the 25th hour. And what you really need is you need to have ongoing credibility and conversations with your base so that they will be activated at all times. And that's a wider network instead of having, staff or volunteers who have to do this outreach and kind of drag people to the polls kicking and screaming. So I think that the numbers definitely line up as Gary Chambers outlined. I was very heartened to hear his stance in terms of his policy positions, because he did, he quoted Build Back Better. That's not, too often you hear from a lot of progressives these days. And he did immediately kind of set expectations of, well, we need more Democrats in the Senate, et cetera, et cetera. So I like that he's not out here selling pipe dreams, but he has the map to back him up, and he has the voice that's authentic and substantive. And so I hope the best for him. But to your point, Roland, if you're waiting around for the Democratic Party on a national level who raises absurd amounts of money. I mean, every quarter, Jamie Harrison is saying how they've raised a record amount of money for that particular fundraising cycle. And yet we don't necessarily see it translate into these individual races and really activating voters. I don't know what they're doing with the money other than begging for more money. But I would like to see him get the resources and really stay true to what he's pushing out there, because I think, I'm always for Black candidates getting to run their race and be taken seriously and being funded, and lets the chips fall where they may.
Larry, I'm live on my show right now, and the thing that as I think about this, and I'm always talking about history, and I need the people who are watching and listening right now to understand something, and that is when we're talking about the history of African Americans. When we look at how the Voting Rights Act changed, when you had some 6% of Black people who were registered in Mississippi in 1964, but when the vote got passed and signed into law, that number went up to 60%. When you saw the turnout in Alabama in these places, when you saw Black folks who were funding these various initiatives themselves, what we're talking about is Black folks who were saying it's about our interests. And so the point there is, yes, Gary could be pressing the Democrats there, but this is where if you're Black entertainers, if you're other folks as well, should be saying, hey, damn them we're going to ensure that a Black Voters Matter has $1, $2, $3, $5 million or more to go in, hit the ground, have citizenship education training programs, go to rural Louisiana. Don't just go to New Orleans or go to Baton Rouge or Shreveport, but go to Opelousas, go to Leonville, go to northern Louisiana, central and southern Louisiana, to these small towns and getting folks out. That's how you change the game.
Listen, Roland, you hit it right on the nose. You have to till the soil, right? You have to invest in the folks in our community, other minoritized communities that don't feel like you've been listening to them. And so, that hasn't been happening. Now, look, I'm a former congressional staffer, work for a CBC member, and this has been a complaint for years, right? So we got to go into communities. We have to let people hear why you should vote, why you should vote in every election, not just presidential election and midterms. But we have to make that investment. And Roland, listen, I want to highlight something you've been talking about and continue to talk about. We got to talk about the investment in Black media, right? Because if you don't invest in shows like yours, then Black folks don't get the message, right? And you have a massive platform. We have to invest in Black media. We have to also, like I said earlier about tilling the soil, we have to make those investments, long-term investments, right? So we can't, like you said, Reese talked about, we just can't wait to, like we have a, midterm election, say, oh, now we need to go out and we need to reach out to the Hispanic and Black communities and we need to get them to vote for us. No, you can't do that. And as we've seen in Georgia, when you till the soil and you continue to, wait for the rains to come, right? And let the crops grow, then what you get is, you get Senator Warnock, right? But you have to do the work. That means including the investment in Black media and Black nonprofit organizations. And you have to also listen to Black folks.
Greg, for the folks who are listening, and again, so you folks will say, okay, I can give to Gary's campaign, or I can give to groups like Black Voters Matter, who is going to go into states like Louisiana. We always talk about this. This is how we're talking about you change the game. If all of a sudden, and I need people to understand something, numbers don't lie. What Gary just laid out, y'all, it's there. If John Bell Edwards won by 30,000 votes, that's how he became governor of Louisiana. Y'all, it's a statewide race. There is no difference between a gubernatorial race or the U.S. Senate race. Literally, what happened there could happen again in November. It's just a matter of people actually turning out.
It is, Roland. And as we have heard over and over again, you've said this, Reese, you've been saying it for years. This is about infrastructure. It's about institutions. The White Nationalist Party and the Democratic Party are not the home for the organizational thrusts that use them. We have to think of the two major political parties in the United States of America as means to an end. So it's important when we hear Brother Chambers mention Oscar Dunn or PBS Pinchback and all those elected officials throughout the South during Reconstruction, they used the Republican Party to advance the agenda of Black people. What held Black people together at that time, of course, was they had all come through and from enslavement. The Republican Party in the South was created by Black people, and the National Republican Party used Black people to achieve their agenda, namely to cement their laissez-faire attitude toward growth that enabled them to basically carry the United States into the 20th century. It was, in other words, a pragmatic deal. And once the Republicans got what they needed, they abandoned Black people. Now we fast forward to the 1960s, as you've talked about many, 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 many times. Fannie Hamer and all of the crew in Mississippi with the Mississippi Freedom Democrats were not Democrats as much as they were going to use the apparatus of the Democratic Party to advance the agenda of Black people. They organized independent of the major political parties, and they inhabited the Democratic Party because it was the one that was close enough to them. But in the 30 years before that, what you saw was the white nationalists of the South attempted to destroy any option for Black voter participation through a private group of network of organizations which tried to privatize the Democratic Party in the South. That's all the voting rights cases in Texas, Herndon and Nixon and all those cases. They tried to make the white primary the source of their electoral power by beginning with their independent organization. They inhabited the Democratic Party. Finally, after the Voting Rights Act, as you just said, what we see is that there was a cohesive enough network of Black institutions, the Black fraternities and sororities, the Black church, the Black social organizations, that when Black people went out to vote, they were being driven by organizations that had nothing to do with the Democratic Party. That's what put those first couple of waves of elected officials in. Now, where are we today? Black politicians in the Democratic Party are by and large wholly owned subsidiaries of the party. This is the mistake in Black politics. Independent party building doesn't mean that you are no longer voting in the Democratic Party. It means that you have an independent institutional source to drive your participation in whatever the electoral politics are, which is exactly why what you said is essential. You fund the institutions that are independent of the Democratic and White Nationalist Party, and then when they go to work, they inhabit whichever of those parties at the moment advances our interests. And that's why Georgia flipped. You had Black Lives Matter folk down there who are not Democrats. You had folks in Until Freedom who are not Democrats. But they said, if we get Warnock in there, if we get Ossoff in there, we can advance our agenda. It's just that simple. You can't get turnout. What do you say, Roland? You can't be Black media and be scared?
No. You cannot be Black on media and be scared.
And you can't be Black politics and be scared. When Gary Chambers talks, and I agree with you, Reese, he's got the policy talk, but when you hear him, he's talking like a Black person. Now, J.B. Harrison can't do that because he is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Democratic Party. There's no independent Black political base in the Democratic Party. That's why they're scared of their own shadow, and that's why those white boys gonna keep screwing us until we have an independent organizational formation that will use the Democratic Party the way everybody else uses.
Now, see, on that particular point right there, which is, see, this is what Dr. Carr just said is exactly why I need all of you punk-ass trolls who love to run your little comments, Roland, you owned by the party. First of all, anybody knows me. I ain't never identified as a Democrat. I have never identified as a Republican. I have never worked for a candidate. I don't ever plan on working for a candidate. All of you dumbass trolls talking about Roland trying to get the press secretary job. First of all, that's a pay cut. Two, I can't say what the hell I want to say. So I ain't never even thought of wanting to be. I don't ever want to be a press secretary because I'm just letting y'all know right now. Go back and look at some of them Richard Pryor news conferences when he was the president. If you want to see what the press conference is going to look like when I'm up there, that's what it's going to look like. That ain't going to happen. So, but I need these fools to understand that people say, like when I hear people say, we got to have our own Black political party. Y'all, what Dr. Carr just said is actually what you should be articulating. There are two parties in America. Y'all, it's simple. It's Democrat, Republican. Look, now, do I believe we should have as many parties like you see in Israel, like in the UK? Hell yeah. Ain't gonna happen. It's two parties. The last significant third party in America was the Reform Party, okay? Which was funded by Ross Perot. They had an opportunity to actually do it, but they got caught up in ego, power, and control. That's it. That's what happened there. Okay, yeah, you got the Green Party, whatever, not significant. Yes, you got the Libertarian, not significant. I'm just telling y'all right now. So the question is how do you use, you got to make a decision, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. How do I use one of these parties to advance the interest of our people? So a lot of y'all, when y'all sit here and run y'all mouths and y'all talk all this trash and y'all want to sit here and normally I don't name the punk so-called fake new Black media that you never ever see cover anything in Black America and just sit their ass at home behind laptops and hide their faces. See, what they will not tell you is how power actually works. See, I love the people who are sitting here posting stuff saying, ooh, HBCUs got $2.7 billion in the American Rescue Plan, and Hispanic serving institutions got $11 billion, and Asian and Pacific Islander and Native American serving institutions got $5.5 billion. What the fools did not tell you is that black people also go to those same schools. But they ain't tell you all of that because you don't understand power and how it's used. And so right now, there's 50-50 in the United States Senate. And so y'all have heard me say, if Mandela Barnes, who's leading in the polls in Wisconsin, if Mandela Barnes is able to beat Ron Johnson, now the United States Senate is 51-49. If Sherry Beasley is able to beat, more than likely, the former governor of North Carolina in North Carolina, now the Senate makeup is 52-48. That's assuming Democrats hold their seats in Georgia, New Hampshire, and Nevada, and Arizona. So now all of a sudden, oh, we don't know who's going to be the Democratic nominee in Pennsylvania, but if a Democrat wins in Pennsylvania, we now are at 53-47.
That's right.
If black turnout goes up in Louisiana, it's now 54-46. If Val Demings can somehow beat Rubio in Florida, it's now 55-45.
That's right.
If Tim Ryan is able, first of all, whoever wins, that he's leading the polls. I know there's a sister who's running as well, but let's say the person leading the polls right now is Tim Ryan. If Congressman Tim Ryan is able to win in Ohio, you now at 56-44. That now means that Sinema and Manchin are now irrelevant.
That's right.
Now they don't control the agenda. Because if those two say, no, we don't want to end the filibuster, okay, now it's 54-46. You got numbers. So folks, it comes down to math. So when I cuss out the fools who say, man, this is bullshit, I ain't gonna vote, we ain't got tangibles, okay, so let me say this about tangibles. Y'all gotta promise this. It don't matter if Gary makes a promise if he never wins.
That's right.
Let me repeat that again. Switch to this camera, please. Switch to this camera right here. Let me try to explain to you real simple. It doesn't matter if a candidate makes a promise if they never win. It doesn't matter if a candidate makes a promise and your ass not registered. It doesn't matter if a candidate makes a promise and your ass registered but don't vote. They kind of all go together. And see, that's the thing, Reese, that just really gets on my nerves when we're talking about power and how to use power and how to affect change. And then when you begin to ask these simple Simons, they can't ever really deal with that because they love talking blackness. They love hollering, we need reparations, we need tangibles, we need a black agenda. But you cannot execute anything if you do not have the political power to do it.
That part. And to be honest, all the things that they are demanding are things that are in process, but because the power isn't there to get it across the finish line, then it remains, a priority. It remains a policy position as opposed to a result. And so this goes back to the conversations we've had on the show plenty of times. I remember when Ice Cube was on the show with his, what did he call it? Black reporter, black something or another. And I asked him, well, I said to him, a lot of the things that you're suggesting are already, I can name the specific legislation in the Congress right now and the people that are pushing that through. Why not partner up with those folks? Why not create a scorecard? Why not align with people that are already pushing your priorities forward and put your political backing behind that, as opposed to trying to create this whole separate entity that doesn't have infrastructure? You need infrastructure to get things across the finish line. You need political will beyond just people using hashtags and slogans and being chaos agents and disinformation agents on the internet. And so I'm with Dr. Carr on using these outside, or maybe you said it, Roland, outside entities to help push the Democratic Party. But the rub is you have to have something substantive that you're even aware of and that you're aligning yourself with to actually make a serious demand. Because if you're making demands on shit people are already working on, then what is you even talking about? You just yapping. And so I think when you have, like, for instance, Diddy had his new Black Party who endorsed nobody in 2020. They put no resources behind Mike Espy, behind Raphael Warnock, behind any of the many Black folks that were running in for office. There would have been historic number of Black people winning. They put nothing behind it. And so I'm all for building political capital. That's what we're trying to do on this show as we educate our viewers. But we have to be strategic. And that doesn't mean throwing out everybody who's actually running, working on this stuff. It doesn't mean immediately coming from a posture of, oh, the CBC ain't got nothing for us, they ain't doing nothing for us. When they're doing everything that you say you want done, you're just not paying attention.
See, Larry. Let me be real clear, because for all of the Simple Simons, see that Roland go dogging us, asking for tangibles. Fool, y'all ain't the only ones asking for a damn agenda. NAACP has an agenda, printed out.
Right.
National Urban League has a Black agenda, printed out. Black Voters Matter had one. Black Lives Matter had one. Until Freedom had one. So don't act like that. Hell, I've talked about specifically Black-owned advertising. I've talked about make sure we're getting our fair share. I've talked about make sure we're getting our fair share of the $660 billion that's going to be spent in the infrastructure bill on roads. I specifically said to Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, on the Air Force Two with Vice President Kamala Harris, that very thing coming back from Selma. See, and then I specifically asked Secretary Cardona about dealing with the education and the Black Belt in Alabama. So I don't want to hear none of you punk asses out there talk about, man, Roland sitting there dogging us, talking about our tangibles. I don't care. ADOS, FBA, B1, B12, I don't give a damn what the hell all your names and letters and your numbers are. We all are talking about having a Black agenda. But let me be clear again. If all of you talking about over here is opposed by the party on the right, that means you only got one shot to get it, and who you gonna get it through? So the question is, who are we going to push and then stand behind to actually get it done? Larry, that's what it boils down to. If we're talking about, if basketball is about rebounding, taking good shots and playing defense, politics ain't that damn hard. But you cannot change a damn thing if you're not registered and if you don't vote.
Yeah, I mean, and folks are complaining about all kinds of issues, and like you said, they don't have a foot in the game, right? So, and listen, Roland, you talked about it having a platform, right? So, CBC, et cetera, National Urban League, NAACP, et cetera. And I think that, Roland, one of the issues or challenges we deal with the last several years in the Black community is we have more folks who actually have resources, right? But we also have, they may not have an understanding of how politics works. You talked about Diddy, and I'm quite sure what he was thinking was his thought. It was in the right place, right? His heart was in the right place in terms of creating some kind of independent platform. But you need to first talk to folks who have been in the game, like yourself, like Dr. Carr, and we have, Reese on the end also, who understand how the dynamics work, right? So like you said, and I also feel like that a lot of these people are shadow boxing, right? In many respects. So if you don't understand the dynamics, but you have the resources, then you need to talk to the folks who've been involved in the political game, understand GOTV, understand how all these dynamics work. In terms of looking at the data at a micro level, in terms of what communities we need to turn out to win elections in Louisiana and Georgia and Texas, some of these other places, right? But we need to, once again, the folks with resources have to stop shadow boxing. The folks, the trolls on social media, et cetera, have to get behind those social media platforms, and they need to put their hands in the soil, right? That's what we're talking about when I talk about tilling the soil. We need to put our hands in the soil. We need to collaborate with the folks who have platforms, who have the years of experience in politics and media, et cetera. We need to collaborate as Black folks. And then when we do that, we come together collectively. Then we can address the issues in the Senate in terms of making you talk about, you gave us the numbers in terms of what we can do. We can get folks to come out to vote, but we got to give them something to come out for. And then we have to continue, once again, to invest in those communities, highlight why we care, and then we can continue to change things for the better for this country.
See, here's what it's going to be real interesting to find out. See, this is where now, Dr. Carr, are the folk going to put their money where their mouth is, or they going to put their feet where their asses are. Here's what I want to know. If you look at what Gary's standing for, ADOS, FBA, B1, ain't that y'all agenda? So here's the question. ADOS, FBA, and B1. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead, and I don't normally do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. ADOS, FBA, B1, Yvette Carnell, Antonio Moore, Vicky Dillard, Jason Black. Y'all going to take y'all asses to Louisiana? Y'all going to broadcast y'all shows from Louisiana? Or y'all going to go with Gary and register Black people in Louisiana? That's what I want to know. So let me just go ahead and put it out there. Antonio, Yvette, Boyce, Vicky, Miss Bad Lace Front, Jason Black, hiding your ass behind your camera. Roland Martin Unfiltered is going to be in Louisiana. We gonna spend time on the ground in Louisiana broadcasting from those small towns talking to Black people. Where y'all gonna be? What y'all gonna do? Your agenda? Gary, back in your issues. Are you going to go there to try to register those 300,000 unregistered African Americans in Louisiana? Are you going to go there to get them registered and turn them out? That's the challenge I'm putting out there for all y'all. Greg, go ahead.
Well, that's the challenge, Roland. That is the challenge if they will do that. And I'll say a couple of things. There's so much there that you laid out. One, I don't think any of the people that you named have much influence at all. The appearance of keyboard warriors and social media influencers is direct evidence of the failure of Black politics. Organizational structures, and again, that's why I mentioned a few minutes ago, we talk about what happened in the wake of the Civil Rights Act. We did not carry forth the momentum of memory. When we heard Brother Chambers say that we now have to build the number, that is, he's not out there caping for the Democrats. What he's saying is you've got to get that number over 50. We saw Joe Manchin isn't a Democrat. He is in the United States federal legislature in the Senate as a member of the Democratic Party as the wholly owned subsidiary of energy. His party is the Energy Party, you understand? But he uses the D because they don't have an energy party. So they bought a senator. And when he kneecapped Sarah Bloom Raskin the other day to make sure she couldn't become the vice chair of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, it was because she is a threat to the energy agenda. She's talking about global warming. So they called him and said, hey, boy, get your ass in there and kill the damn nomination. Click. And then he went in with his voting card, which has a D on it, to kill the nomination. So when Chambers said we got to build the number, people mistake the party with the politics. Yvette Carnell, ain't nobody following. If Yvette Carnell go down to Louisiana, you know how many people will be down there? One. And hey, come on down. If Antonio Moore come from LA and go to LA, go to Louisiana from LA to LA to do his work, no problem. You know how many people there? One. These people on social media, organizations are, you may be able to catch somebody's attention on social media, but you got to be on the ground and work. And that's why we have to de-link party politics from agenda and issues politics. And there's a disconnect that has become wider and wider from the 1970s forward as generation after generation after generation of Black elected officials don't have the institutional support to be able to bring that thunder. I don't really have a critique of the Congressional Black Caucus. What I have a critique of is Black community, because this is why I'll say this is what happened. The class politics within the Black community have been so shot through with not understanding how class works that we have now mistaken people who look like us as people who will represent our agenda. And when you don't have institutions strong enough to force people to deal with your agenda, what you're left with is people who will do the best they can, but who don't have anybody to push them to do the work. And at that point, it don't even matter the color of the elected official. You can buy politicians. So yeah, if you want to support Brother Chambers, and I think we all should, he's reaching out to people who have mistaken DNR with the agenda of Black people. What are Democrats doing for us? That ain't the question. The question is what you're going to do for yourself and use the Democrats to get it. That's a different question.
Let me say this real clear. Because I know all y'all little loudmouths going to do videos on me, because that's the only way y'all get clicks. Jason Black, Vicky Dillard, Boyce Watkins, all y'all. See, so here's why I'm putting it out the way I am. And just so y'all know, I had Gary on before he ran for the U.S. Senate. I had Gary on before he ran for Congress. So don't try to act brand new about Gary Chambers. But what I need people to understand is, if you gonna talk trash, if you wanna call somebody, oh, you a Democratic pawn, you a Democratic sellout, you now have a Black candidate who's speaking to your issues.
That's right.
You got a Black candidate who sat there and lit a blunt in a commercial. You got a Black candidate who burned a Confederate flag.
I mean.
You got a Black candidate who said that he has high respect for Minister Farrakhan. You got a Black candidate who pointed out point blank, when it comes to reparations, he stands with it. This real simple. Antonio, at Tone Talks on Twitter, Yvette Carnell, at Browning Brown, Breaking Brown, whatever the hell your name is, Jason Black, Black Authority, whatever the hell your name is. Again, all the letters y'all want to use, all your ADOS people, your FBA people, your B1 people. The man just said it. The Democratic governor won with 700,000 votes, won by 30,000 votes. 450,000 to 700,000 were African American. I want to know, when are y'all going to go to Louisiana? And let me be clear again, Vicky, Boyce, Jason, Yvette, Antonio, when are y'all going to mobilize y'all people to do door knocking for Gary Chambers? When are y'all going to do passing out registration or having events, getting people out to register? See, this ain't a call out. This is a call to. Let me say it again. I ain't calling you out, I'm calling you to. Because see, all y'all who run y'all mouth, I know I went to St. Louis to help Tashara Jones become mayor.
Yes, sir.
I know we went to Fort Worth to help the sister there try to become mayor. I'm going to Texas to help Jasmine Crockett become the next member of Congress, actually my member of Congress in Texas. We going to Georgia to cover Warnock to make sure he gets reelected. I'm already reaching out to Sherry Beasley's office to go to North Carolina. We waiting to see who's going to become the nominee in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin to see what, so I know what we doing because I also know, and when we talk about a black agenda, we talk about who's going to stand for us, ain't going to happen if you ain't got Mandela in Wisconsin, Sherry Beasley in Sherry Beasley in North Carolina, Val Demings in Georgia. You got Malcolm Kenyatta, who's running for the nomination in Pennsylvania. We don't know, again, he's not leading in the polls, so we know what's happening there. The point I'm making is, where y'all at? So I ain't calling you out, I'm calling you to. So it's real easy to tweet. It's real easy to make little cute ass little videos on YouTube, running your little video, talking about, ooh, you in the boule. Yep, damn sure I am. But the one thing I know, the boule is mobilized and organized to turn out and spend money. Oh, you can say what you want to say. Oh, yeah, you see it right here. Yeah, I'm an alpha. Damn Sippy. Damn Skippy. Got the tracksuit on as well. But here's what I know. Alphas all across the country got voter turnout programs.
That's right.
Oh, I know. You can talk trash. Oh, you Prince Hall Mason. Yep. I know they also turning folk out.
That's right.
So here's my question. To all y'all talk all that shit about the boule and the black frats and all y'all call the black elite, what y'all punk asses doing? What y'all doing? How you mobilizing? How you organizing? Who you helping? What school board members are y'all electing? What city council members are y'all electing? What county board members are y'all electing? What members of the state legislature are y'all electing? What gubernatorial candidates are y'all electing? What members of the House y'all electing? Members of the Senate? I ain't calling you out, I'm calling you to. And so what I want to know, are you going to show up for the game? And are you going to help coach or play in the game? Or are you going to go talk shit in the stands? Better yet, you can't even afford a ticket to the game. You're going to talk shit from your couch at home.
Don't do it, Roland.
That's all I want to know.
Don't do that.
Because, see, we don't have time for the bullshit YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook games. Today is March 17th. Primaries are happening in states right now. Runoff in Texas is in May. You got runoffs happening around the country. You heard Gary say, keep them under 50% in November, come back in December for the runoff.
Right.
All I'm asking is, what y'all gonna do?